Hey guys, back with another video. Today we're going to be looking at isosceles triangles and solving problems or finding angles, missing angles within isosceles triangles. I've got 3 examples for you today which go from not too hard to a little bit harder, and in the next video I've got 2 more coming which will be a lot more difficult and that you really have to think about in order to solve. By the end of all of these, you should be really good at finding missing angles in triangles. So let's go to our first question. What is the angle A in this triangle? Notice the position of our 120-degree angle. This is an isosceles triangle indicated by the 2 red slashes going through 2 of the sides of the triangle. Our 120-degree angle is positioned in between those 2 red slashes, which indicates it is the odd angle out. What that means is that the other 2 angles, A and our unidentified angle, are the same value. So what we're saying is, as there are 2 angles that are the same, A equals the unidentified angle. They're both the same value. It's important to notice that, or to remember, that the angles within a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So what happens if we add up the angles of this triangle? Well, then we get that 120 degrees plus A plus their other angle equals 180 degrees, and that should be correct because all angles must add up to 180 degrees. But also we showed that this is an isosceles triangle and that 2 of the angles are the same. We saw that A is the same as the unidentified angle, so we could really replace the unidentified angle with the value A. Well, what would that look like? It would give us 120 degrees plus A equals 180 degrees. Look, now we have 2 A's. We can even simplify this equation further by saying that 120 degrees plus 2A equals 180 degrees. That is, 120 degrees and 2A together make up 180 degrees. How do we find out what 2A is? If we take away 120 degrees from 180 degrees, that will give us 2A. 180 degrees minus 120 degrees equals 2A. What's 180 minus 120? That gives us 60. That means that 2A equals 60. We're very close to the answer now. So 2A equals 60 means that A equals 30, because there are 2 A's of the value 30, and that's our answer. A equals 30. So there's our first answer. Okay, let's try our next question. Can you guess the angle B? What's the angle B? Well, something we always need to remember is that all 3 angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So we can actually write this down when we get a problem like this. We could write this particular triangle down as 22 plus B plus the unmarked angle equals 180 degrees. But look at this triangle. It's got 2 red strokes to 2 sides, which means it's an isosceles triangle, which means that 2 of the angles are going to be exactly the same in this triangle. Now, take a note of the position B. Where is it? Well, the angle B is between the 2 strokes, which means in this case, B is the odd one out. So that means that the unmarked angle is exactly the same as 22 degrees. And we can rewrite that sum that we wrote earlier in this way. 22 plus B plus 22, which was the unmarked angle, equals 180 degrees. What does that mean? We have 2 lots of 22, so 44 plus B equals 180. we can rearrange this because 44 and b together are 180. If we take 44 away from 180, we get b. So 180 minus 44 equals 136. B equals 136. There is our answer. Now on to the next question. So here is our next problem. What are the angles A, B and C in this triangle? Now there's a bit of an issue here because I know I normally say that the three angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees, but we have a problem here. We don't know any of the angles in the triangle, and even though this is an isosceles triangle, we would need at least one angle to be able to understand or to find the other two angles, but we don't have any angles inside the triangle at all. So the fact that all three angles add up to 180 degrees doesn't help us at all. We've got to find another way. It doesn't help us right now. We need to find another way of finding angles. So how are we going to find angles on this triangle? Well, I'd like you to remember a rule that we discussed in the last videos about internal angles that are opposite external angles. The rule was two internal angles opposite an external angle have the same value as the external angle. What that means is that 135 degrees, which is an external angle, has two opposite internal angles, A and C. A plus C must equal 135 degrees because they're opposite the external angle. So that means that A plus C equals 135 degrees. That's our first piece of useful information. The next thing I'd like you to notice is the position of the angle C. Notice that it is exactly in the middle of the two strokes that indicate that we have an isosceles triangle. And if you remember, when an angle appears right in the middle of these two strokes, it means that it is the odd angle out, and the other two angles are identical given we have an isosceles triangle. What that means is that A and B must be identical. So A equals B. That's our second piece of useful information. So there's one more piece of information that we need to start working out these angles. I'd like you to take a look at the bottom right hand corner of this image where we have the degrees, the external degree 135 and the angle B, the external angle 135 and the angle B. This is going to help us to work out what the angle B is. Let's zoom in on this. Now notice this is on a straight line, and we know that the angle on a straight line is 180 degrees. So this 180 degrees is made up of two parts, the angle 135 degrees and the angle B. What we're saying is that if you add B to 135 degrees, you're going to get 180 because this angle on a straight line is 180 degrees and it's made up of the two different parts. So we could rewrite this as B plus 135 degrees equals 180 degrees because both parts make up the angle on the straight line. If we want the value of B, then we can rearrange this, just take away 135 from 180, and this is going to give us the value B. So let's go back to our original diagram and do this. B equals 180 minus 135 degrees, and this is the last piece of information that we need. If we now add the other bits of information to that, that is A equals B, and then we add our other piece of information, A plus C equals 135 degrees, we are now in a position to work out these three angles. So now we can work out our three values with these bits of information. 180 minus 135 equals 45. So obviously B equals 45 degrees. A equals B, so A equals 45 degrees. Now that we know A plus C equals 135 degrees means 45 plus C equals 135 degrees. If we take 45 away from 135 degrees, that gives us 90, because 135 minus 45 equals 90, so that means C equals 90 degrees. And there are our results. Just a quick note, obviously I haven't drawn these triangles to exact dimensions because C doesn't really look like 45 degrees, but really when you're doing these diagrams you don't need to have the exact measurements, because the principle is you are using the values within the angles to work out the other values of the other angles. So anyway, we'll stop for there. I may do one more video with a problem that's even harder than this one using isosceles triangles, and I'll probably upload that tomorrow. So until then.